Abhichara, very rare, but yes, we do come across cases, very, very rare cases. All those put together actually comes under Agantu Jwara, where Peyadi Krama is not indicated. And last one thing I would like to add is about Vichama Jwara Chitta. It could be Satata, Nyadushka, Dhriya, Kanturtaka. There is a specific, interesting pattern of treatment that has been indicated in the text, which involves giving Sneha for Akantupana, bringing about Vamanam, and then immediately giving food. There's a typical combination of treatment that Vichama Jwara Chitta does. So go by that. Never to go back to this usual Peyadi Krama. It's not going to work, it's very complicated. So once you know it is Vishama Jwara, the pattern is there, shift yourself completely to the typical Vishama Jwara Chikitta line of treatment. Because in Vishama Jwara, there is an involvement of Alpabala in Dhatu. The dosha becomes leena in Dhatu because of its Alpabala. So Bala has to be taken care of there. And there's a different technique of ensuring that dhatu itself becomes stronger and it itself expels the dosha on its own, whichever is there, Leena. So that's a beautiful technique of Vichama Jwara Chikitsa that has been told in the text. So there also Peyadi Krama does not work. So these are all, in short, conditions that we have to avoid Peyadi Krama. Okay, so this is about Nishedha of Peyadi Krama. I think if there is any questions, we will deal with that and then go to discussions about cases. I would prefer to take cases in the end. If there are any questions, then we will.
Yes, ma'am. One participant have forwarded one question. 82-year male, history of diabetes mellitus since 10 years. In April, RT-PCR test positive. History of hypertension since 2 months after taking Sarpagandha Vadi. BP comes down, sometimes goes beyond. He feels excessive cold any time in a day. At that time, wears sweater and uses blankets. Sometimes BP up and sometimes low. According to Ayurveda, what is the cause of excessive cold and what is the line of treatment in Ayurveda?
What do they mean by cold? Is it pratishay you're talking about or shivering that you're talking about?
Ma'am, this question is asked by Dr. Rachna. Rachna, ma'am, can you unmute and please tell, ma'am?
Yes, occasionally it's shifting and sometimes.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
Ma'am, you are not audible, ma'am.
Yes, occasionally with shivering.
अच्छा, cold का मतलब shivering बोल रहे हैं?
Sometimes shivering, sometimes only feeling cold.
अच्छा. Okay. See, in short, with this fast presentation of the symptoms and the sequel that I came to know, what I understand is it must be a Shita Purvaka Jwara kind of a group where there is an involvement of kapha is there in the body. There's a predisposing condition also. If it is real prameha, then there's a predisposing condition also in the body for kapha. So this appears like a kaphavata jwara group condition. It appears like that. The rest, I think it's very case specific. We need to understand, and because probably agantu anubandhi also. Can't say. If jwara is there, is jwara there? बुखार है क्या?
No. Sometimes when we check the temperature, it comes 98.4, sometimes 99, not more than this. And Prakriti is picked up first. Prakriti of the patient is picked up first. But
देखिए ये तो ज्वर के अंदर शायद आता ही नहीं है. उनके बॉडी में एक तो क्लियर है कि दोष का संचय है और शायद कफवात का संचय है, ऐसा लगता है. और बहुत दिनों से उनको प्रमेह वगैरह का प्रॉब्लम है और वो शायद चिकित्सा में भी है, तो लीन दोष काफी है, प्रीडिस्पोजिंग कंडीशंस है, तो शायद आगंतुक का जो इन्वॉल्वमेंट हुआ है उसकी वजह से उनको वो का लक्षण जो है वो दिख रहा है probably। तो आई वुड सजेस्ट कि पहले तो आहार में इनको तो पेयादिक्रम ही ठीक है, तर्पणादिक्रम नहीं है इस केस में। Nothing of the conditions which indicate tarpana in this case. Instead पेय वगैरह ही चाहिए, लेकिन डिटेल देख के समझना है कि when a patient is already on too many medications, many times the condition is a problem, many times the way the medication would have acted is also a problem. So all the factors need to be taken into consideration before we actually talk about medicine। लेकिन आज की प्रकरण की बात जो है पेयादिक्रम है या तर्पणादिक्रम है, इसमें मैं तो समझूंगी कि इस कंडीशन में तो पेया बेटर है, और उसमें भी अगर यव को यूज करके अगर पेया बना के देंगे, संस्कार गुड़ची वगैरह आमलकी वगैरह डाल के संस्कार करके पेया वगैरह बना के देंगे तो शायद हेल्प हो सकता है। और शीत है तो जीरा का पानी वगैरह भी साथ में शलंग या जीरा का पानी वगैरह भी हो सकता है, बाकी तो स्पेसिफिक है, देख के बताना पड़ेगा। What do others say? Any inputs? जी बताइए।
उसको भी वीकनेस
सॉरी मैडम, कुछ सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है, क्यों आवाज
Rachna ma'am, voice is breaking now.
Is it post-COVID problem?
Is it a post-COVID problem? अच्छा, तो अभी भी उनका पॉजिटिव है कि नेगेटिव हो गया?
No, now it's negative.
तो लेकिन अभी प्रॉब्लम है क्या?
No, now there is no problem such like, but after so many times he feels shivering and all these problems, sometimes constipation also.
देखिए उनकी अग्नि ठीक नहीं है, उसे ठीक कीजिए।
Yeah, Agni anorexia problem also occurring.
अग्नि ठीक नहीं है, बाकी सब अग्नि की वजह से होगी, लेकिन ये ज्वर नहीं है, दोष संचय बहुत है, आम भी है, लगता है ऐसा आपके कहने से सिम्टम्स को देखते हुए। पहले खाने में थोड़ा ट्रिमिंग कीजिए, सिर्फ 2 वक्त या 3 वक्त का खाना, वो भी पेय वगैरह देके बात का ख्याल रखिए, लेकिन थोड़ा अग्नि को ट्रैक पे लाना शायद जल्दी हेल्प कर सकता है, ऐसा मुझे लगता है।
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Ma'am, Sharab's another question. Can we give Dadima, Draksha and dates to a diabetic patient?
That's a nice question. Are we talking about a diabetic patient or are we talking about a Pramehi?
Diabetic patient. Rachna ma'am only have asked the second part of the question she had forwarded to me.
Okay. देखिए पहले तो is Hindi comfortable, because I think Rachna ma'am wanted in, it's okay if I talk in Hindi now. देखिए रचना जी, डायबिटीज जरूरी नहीं है कि जिन जिन को डायबिटीज है उन सब में प्रमेय संप्राप्ति हो। ऐसे काफी केसेस हैं जिनमें डायबिटीज करके डायग्नोस हुआ रहता है, लेकिन उनमें सिर्फ आम रहता है, उन्हें मेदो दृष्टि बिल्कुल नहीं रहती है, मांस दृष्टि तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं रहती है। तो उनको आम पाचन की चिकित्सा हो जाए तो उनकी जो शुगर लेवल्स है वो अपने आप कम हो जाती है। अगर उनमें आप प्रमेय की चिकित्सा करेंगे तो कुछ काम भी नहीं होता है, ऐसे कंडीशंस भी है। और मैंने ऐसे केसेस भी देखे हैं जिनमें रस में कफ है, रस धातु में दृष्टि है, लेकिन उनका कोई प्रमेय का सिम्टम्स ही नहीं है, शुगर लेवल्स बढ़ा रहता है, तो उनके हिसाब से तो वो डायबिटीज ऐसा ही है, लेकिन हमारे हिसाब से वो प्रमेय ही नहीं है। इन दोनों कंडीशंस में हम लोग द्राक्षा दारिमा का प्रयोग अच्छी तरह से कर सकते हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। हम लोग तो काफी दारिमा का सूप वगैरह बना के लेने के लिए भी बोलते हैं इनको, और ये भी देखा जाता है कि वो लेने के बाद उनकी शुगर लेवल्स भी कम हो जाती है। बताइए क्यों? दारिक तो अम्ल रस है, अच्छा खासा अनुलोमन करता है, अग्निदीपन करता है, उनका अग्निदीपन हो जाता है, अनुलोमन होता है, तो आम की प्रमाण जो है रस में वो कम हो जाती है। तो उसके कम होने से हमें, आम तो मधुर होता है ना, काफी मधुर होता है, तो चेक करेंगे तो वहां पे तो शुगर लेवल डाउन हो जाता है। लेकिन यही बात अगर असली प्रमेही जो है, जिनको बहुअबद्ध मेद है, बहुअबद्ध मांस है, बहुअबद्ध वेद है और टिपिकल प्रमेय का निदान है, दही वगैरह बहुत ज्यादा लेते हैं, काम ही नहीं करते, बैठे रहते हैं या सोते रहते हैं, तो निदान सब कुछ है उनकी लाइफ में और संप्राप्ति भी दिख रहा है। रात को 3-4 बार उठते हैं मूत्र के लिए, उनकी मूत्र को कलेक्ट करके देखेंगे तो आविलत्व है, बहुमूत्रता भी है। तो ऐसे कंडीशन में हम आम्लकी के सिवाय और कोई भी अम्ल को हम एडवाइस नहीं करेंगे। क्यों नहीं करेंगे? अगर अम्ल हम देंगे, एक्चुअली थोड़ा बहुत मधुर चला गया तो भी हमें प्रॉब्लम, इतना प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, लेकिन अम्ल को तो हम कंप्लीटली अवॉइड करेंगे असली प्रमेही में, क्योंकि अम्ल से क्या होता है, अम्ल से कफ जो है वो पिघलता है, तो धातु भी पिघलता है। जब कफ पिघलने लगता है तो प्रमेय का लक्षण बढ़ता है, संप्राप्ति बढ़ती है, तो ये डेंजरस है। तो असल में वो, यहाँ तो सब लोग आयुर्वेद वैद्य हैं, तो पहले डायग्नोस करेंगे, इतना जरूरी है कि ये असल में प्रमेय संप्राप्ति है या नहीं है। डायबिटीज तो उनके हिसाब से शुगर लेवल कितना भी हो, वो not to neglect it, keep it in our minds, but then keep it aside and diagnose independently. क्या ये प्रमेय है? अगर असल में प्रमेय है तो डोंट एडवाइज दाडिमा और द्राक्षा और वृक्षामला और परुषा का। इंस्टेड, if at all there is a situation where you have to give tarpana in those cases, preferable to make tarpana with amlaki, paniya, and yava, sattu yava, laja sattu, and then prepare a mantha and give, which is a very good treatment for prameha also. तो उनका बुखार भी उतर जाता है, उनका कुछ प्रॉब्लम है तो वो भी उतर जाता है, प्रमेह भी ठीक हो जाता है। तो आम्ल के लिए, फल के लिए वहाँ आम्ल की ठीक है उस कंडीशंस में, दाडिमा और द्राक्षा एडवाइजेबल नहीं है। लेकिन अगर वो डायबिटीज तो है लेकिन आम की वजह से है, तो आराम से दे सकते हैं, बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहा है। Hope you got your answer.
हेलो,
हाँ जी बोलिए।
बसंत कुसुमा का रस एंड all symptoms, maize and mass धातु also involved.
मैम मैं सुन नहीं पा रही हूँ ठीक से, आप थोड़ा ऑडियो थोड़ा ठीक से रखेंगे।
हेलो,
हाँ जी बोलिए।
हाँ, yeah, he is taking बसंत कुसुमा का रस
मैडम वो तब तो मेडिसिन हो गई, मुझे तो संप्राप्ति बताइए।
संप्राप्ति, I think mass and milk pushti also occurs, and
क्या
Avil Mutrata, no, I have not asked about Avil Mutrata, but 4 to 8 times he goes for
बहुत सिंपल सी बात है मैडम, आप एक काम कीजिए, उनकी यूरिन कलेक्ट कीजिए सुबह सुबह वाली, रखिए और आविलत्व चेक कीजिए, दिख जाएगा आविलत्व है तो डोंट गो फॉर इट। आमल की अगर आविलत्व नहीं है तो कैरी ऑन, एटलीस्ट दैट सिंपल डिफरेंशिएशन वी कैन डू, राइट, इररिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ अदर थिंग्स, इफ यू आर एबल टू डिफरेंशिएट और नॉट। मूत्र का कलेक्ट करके आविलत्व देखना हर प्रमेय केस में काफी कुछ अच्छा क्लूज देता है डायग्नोसिस में, और काफी मजा भी आता है। और आविलत्व की मेथड क्या क्या होती है, फिल्ट्रेशन में आता है कि नहीं आता है, अलग इस तरह से बदलता है, it gives a lot of clues about the संप्राप्ति in the patient। तो और कुछ नहीं तो मिनिमम एक आविलत्व तो चेक कर लेंगे तो काफी हेल्प हो जाएगा। अगर ये भी नहीं करना है तो सेफर साइड आम्ल की दे दीजिए।
ओके, ओके, थैंक्स अ लॉट।
थैंक यू।
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
यस नेहा जी बोलिए।
Last time I had asked about leptospirosis, so now it is clear that Jwara is Agantuja,
Right.
and Peyadikrama should not be used.
Right.
So when I have to administer samskarita in such patients, so should I not be thinking about Grita, ma'am?
Okay, Grita.
So should I not be thinking about the considering the Agni of patient, because what will be the situation of Agni at that condition?
Now that's a very tricky question. Yes, I think we should talk about it. It's very confusing, very true in the beginning, but we have to take a leap forward. Sometimes what happens when there's high fever and it is Ashukari, and you're quite skeptical about should you give Grita or not, and how much should I give, will they give digestion. So what I generally do is, when I get such a doubt, I give Upashaya. Say for example, if I'm giving Navanita for this case, I would say take 2 spoons of Navanita, add a little Sharkara to it, or powder Sharkara, add to it, and then do Lehana. Say suppose 9 o'clock I've given, so I will do at 9 o'clock and I will watch for half an hour, or say 45 minutes or 1 hour. Then we get a very clear indication. See, just as in Aganta Jwara, the Samprakti is very fast, the treatment also works very fast. We get an immediate Upashaya. I have seen cases where we administer Navanita or Grita or Sneha whenever it is actually indicated. There's a markable reduction in temperature. The patient gets bala, and all this is very quick even when it is getting digested. So that gives us a clue that you can go ahead. So then in the next Ahara Kala, approximately we decide on the Pramana and then start giving it. But if we feel that there is still digestion capacity, if you have a question mark, then go ahead and give it as a Vicharana. Make a Yusha and then add it, or make a Paisa. That's a very nice way generally that I've seen. Make a Paisa kheer banana. Add Grita to that. Use this Grita only for making that, and then give it as food. A very safe way of administering, and it also gives us a clue about the Agni of the person. So you'll be avoiding other foods completely. Then we can move ahead. I think with 1 dose, 2 dose, we get a grip of the Agni of the patient at that time, and also how much Pramana will be needed for that patient. And then we can fix it up.
Okay, so ma'am, the assessment criteria should be temperature reduction in the temperature.
Not just temperature. See, because it's Jwara, the Pratyatma Lakshana is Dehendriya Manastapa. So Dehendriya Manastapa reduction is one major criteria, no doubt. But apart from that, we also observe other things like, Agantu Jwara, there's a Vata Prakopa very clearly. You have severe headaches, acute symptoms will be there. Body pain, so it's severe body pain. If it's Daurbalya, then sudden and immediate heavy, loss of strength. This intensity of the symptoms reduce.
And ma'am, there'll be like the patient come with the presentation of low SpO2 also. So
I need to talk about SpO2. Okay, you finish, then I'll tell you.
No ma'am, that's what. So while we have to provide them oxygen at that time, because we don't know. I don't know what to do then.
How low?
Low will be like 85 or 80.
Okay.
And then if we do not intervene immediately, I have seen that within 12 to 24 hours, we need to intubate the patient. That will be the condition of patient.
And you have to give. Yes. Okay, let me tell you about the SpO2. Thank you, Dr. Neha Pandey, for bringing about this. See, when we were treating with COVID cases with oxygen reduction SpO2 conditions, let me tell you how Sneha worked. We had these 2 categories of patients, right? Who had Pitta Prabalya, who had Vata Prabalya. In Pitta Prabalya cases, we saw that Navanita acts very faster in bringing about normalcy in oxygen, raise in oxygen. In Vata Pradhana cases, Grita worked better than Navanita. And sometimes coconut oil also we used, it worked much faster and better. What we would do, first case that I treated with low oxygen as low as 60-65, that is the case which taught me how to handle that. We started doing Grita Abhyanga, the lung area. front and the back. And when we test it, we can actually make out where the temperature raise is comparatively, relatively. And it's absorbed more and more. So as and when we kept on doing Krita Priyanka and continuously checking SpO2, we saw that there is a markable rise. Well, giving an oxygen support is conditional, depends on the condition, and you can continue with that. But we know that that's just a support, right?
Yes,
What I am talking about is the Samprakti Vighitana inside. Why the oxygen is falling down? There is a Dhatupaka happening inside. When Dhatupaka happens, that is when we see that oxygen starts falling down. So this Jwara in Agantha Jwara, Dhatupaka is very common and it happens very suddenly also and very quickly also. Intervention with Sneha, especially I think in Vata Pradhana COVID cases, we saw Vidaryadi, Vayum Vidaryadischa, Vigataralischa Vidaryadischa Nashe, what Vakata speaks of, to work miracles. And when in those areas where we did not have access and we could not ensure that Vidaryadi could reach, or then we used the simple Vrita at home and that also worked. But in Pitta Pradhana cases, I don't know, not yet very clear, but Dhatupaka could be stable. Dhatupaka is even more faster when there's a Pitta involvement. Yes, and in those cases, simple Triphala with Navanita worked miraculously well. Because what happens is, that Dhatupaka is arrested. We know that Navanita is Shita, it's a Stambhaka. And it's also a Vrishya. When it's a Vrishya, it brings about Dhatu Vriddhi. Isn't it? So when the Dhatu Vriddhi it is adding on and Dhatupaka is arrested immediately, so that sudden fall of SpO2 because of Dhatupaka can be helped.
Okay, I will try this and then next time.
Please do get back and give your feedback on that. That will help us learn better.
Sure, ma'am. And one more question I have, ma'am. I have seen patients who come with Jwara and Pralapa. So the temperature will be more than 103, 104. So then, the first thing we think of is reducing the temperature. That is because they do not recognize they were passing Mala, and it's like the stage.
Yeah. See, Pralapa is a very common feature in Pitta Jwara. And in Pitta Jwara, temperature will certainly be very high. But I think there is nothing to panic because Pralapa also comes in condition where, let me just take the book, before Jwara Mukta Lakshana happens, we have the Pachamana Jwara. In Pachamana Jwara, Pralapa increases and the person can even lose consciousness. See, I think we need to identify that stage. Is it a Pachamana Jwara or is it a Nama Jwara with where Pralapa is happening? Both conditions, in Pachamana Jwara, nothing to bother at all. And even convulsions happen at that Pachamana Jwara, Kujana happens, Pralapa happens, loss of consciousness or moha can happen. Suddenly the person doesn't know where I am and they start blabbering something. The simple use of Mastishkam or Thalam that we do for the entire head and keeping it wet continuously, we see that it reduces. Rather, the whole process of Pachamana Jwara entering into Jwara Mukta Lakshana, that process fastens. It's faster. And suppose if it's real emergency, then there's also a technique that is indicated not in Jwara Prakaranam, but I think in the Prakaranam of Adiyoga of Vamanam, where Vata Urdhvagati is there and it has to be brought down immediately. Haraka speaks of it, I remember in Siddhisthanam, where he asks to use the Ushna Shita Prayoga. Like you have Ushna Prayoga to the feet and Shita Prayoga to the head. And I have seen that this type of Prayoga in such kind of very high fevers, where you have to bring down it suddenly, when done very tactfully, skillfully, brings about an immediate result. There is sweating which happens and the temperature goes down, but there's a side effect which happens that the patient becomes very weak suddenly and takes 1 or 2 extra days. When I say extra days, I mean when we're going very classically from Peyadikrama or Tatnadikrama, the regainment of strength is faster when compared to when you're doing this. But if at all inevitable, we can control through this Vata controlling mechanism by using the Sushna Chitta Viparya. That can be done. But Manstishke works wonders, as I have seen, in very high fevers. But the diagnosis of that specific avastha is very important. Ultimately, it comes to that. Many times we make a mistake. We are all human beings. We make a lot of mistakes. So we learn from that mistakes and move ahead. If there are cases in which you do Satyavamanam and the high temperature goes down, but then there are cases where you do Mastishkim and the temperature goes down. So varied. One Jwara can have so much of avasthas, Amshamsha Kalpana, the Nidana. That's why Vagbhata says, Ratnadi Satasatnanam na Shastra Deva Jayate. They just keep on reading Shastra, then you don't get a grip at all. So practice. So you make mistakes, we learn from mistakes. In the next case, we are better. But after treating many cases, we get a grip of that condition, then we start diagnosing it faster. But every time the same essence comes out, that develop the precision in understanding the Sharira in that case, and the precision in identifying the specific avastha in which the problem is there, specific samprapti, the diagnosis part of it. According to Ayurveda, be clear about the diagnosis. That makes treatment very, very simple and very, very fast. This is what I have experienced, and many also. But personally, thank you, Dr. Neha Pandey, for bringing up this topic, and I would really want to hear from you about the feedback.
Yes, ma'am. If I get the cases and if I get to,
Sure.
definitely. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Participants, if you want the question, to ask questions, please unmute and ask now. Okay.
No one?
Ma'am, I have a doubt. Please don't. Is it a foolish question?
No question is foolish, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Madalam, that is pomegranate only you are telling, isn't it? In which form we will be giving it, ma'am? Is it grinding in mixie jar, or if it is grinding in mixie jar, will it make that pomegranate guru? A small doubt.
Will it make
Madalam. Will it make guru?
Guru. Okay. The process you're talking about.
Yeah.
See, for me, more than the process, what is important is how the end result will be. See, that pomegranate has, I think we talked about it. It has the fruit part and it has the seed part. Fruit is Amla Madhura, the seed is Kashayam. So whichever way we prepare, we need to make sure that Kashayasam doesn't come. Kashayasya savadhyas tarune jore. So it brings about Stabhyate na vipachyate. So doshanam tarune jore. So you give Kashaya Rasa in Taruna Jura, then there is Stamba. You see in the form of Tarpana also it's true, in the form of Pili also it's true. So at any cost, the Kashaya Rasa in that seed should not enter into the juice. The simplest method we suggest is put it into a cloth and squeeze it. But otherwise, yes, mixie can be used. Just use a whipper, one round, just to ensure that outer covering comes out, and the rest you can just squeeze out. I would suggest that method. But if the seed part also gets crushed, then the Kashaya Rasa will come. Never do that. And when we are choosing pomegranate, choose the one which is completely ripened, not the half-ripened one with and Kashaya Rasa blend involved into it. That won't work. That will cause problems. Actually, what problems happen is if by mistake, if you give a little Kashaya Rasa, wash the tongue of the patient. Within next Ahara Kala, you see that the entire tongue would have become very dry and there's liquid which is added on. But if you're giving proper Dadimal Swarasa, which is Amla Madhura, without absolutely with no Kashaya in it, the tongue would have got clearer. So that observation also we can see. So mixy or no mixy, just the fruit part should come.
Okay, ma'am. And the pomegranate must not be fully dried also, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should come.
We need to juice, right?
No, ma'am. That pomegranate, is it a ripe form also and also in dried form? That is ripe and dried. Since we have kept many days, okay, that.
Yeah, I got it. Guess what? We don't get proper juice in it also. And it's not indicated also. Fruit should be fresh always. Some basic things. Treating Jwara is actually a very, very challenging thing. And every time you treat a Jwara case, it teaches you new aspects of understanding Samprati and Chitta. You know, there was this. Any more questions? Should I wait?
Ma'am, you share your experience, ma'am. By the meantime, if any participant, they will ask, ma'am.
Okay. See, some Jwaras, there was, we had actually a camp in Uttar Pradesh in the middle of April a few years ago. It was very, very hot, and we are all South Indians, so not very used to that kind of high temperature. We had a camp. We were a group of doctors who had gone, and one of the doctor developed Jwara just on the previous evening. Sudden rise of temperature to 103, 104. The next day morning camp, all of us have to be really busy with a lot of patients and a lot of things to do. Now, each one of the volunteer was very important for us, and he had to be fine by the next day morning. These are some challenges that when we ourselves face in our own group and family, it really teaches you the most. So we didn't have much medicines also that way, and we can't give medicine also, right? So he just had it. The only reason that we could find out why he got it was because of that strenuous journey. And the second, just before we entered that place, there was a host who had offered us pineapple juice. Okay, and that was very, very sour. So, because everybody was so thirsty, everyone drank it, and this person had overdrank it too, perhaps. And he developed high fever. Now, what do we do? Any suggestions? How would you think? It's 4 o'clock in the evening, he has to be fine by morning. What do we do?
Can we give water boiled with puffed rice?
Water boiled with?
Puffed rice.
Laja.
Alaja.
That's Laja Peya you're saying.
Yeah, ma'am.
Laja Peya is not indicated here. Grishme, just now we saw.
Okay.
Or ma'am, Dadima preparation added with Grita.
Dadima preparation added with Grita. Okay. Anything else? Don't just think of what internally we can do. Think holistically, externally, internal, everything. Dehendriya Manastapi.
Ma'am, external application of Chandana sandal.
Correct. That is what we did. We had some Chandana in us. We applied it exactly to the Brahmarandha. We made a paste and applied that. Put a wet cloth over it, and internally gave him some. We didn't have Dadima, of course, and what he had taken was also Amla. So we didn't want to go ahead with Amla. So what we did, we Laja also was not there, but that was a season where Shringi, Kakata Shringi, that fruit was available there. It's a bit kasher, very cool. Are you aware of that? It's a heart-shaped fruit. Very frequently used there. Supposed to be very cooling, so that was available outside. We bought that. Yeah. This kind of a thing, added Navnita and gave him for Lehana. and then chanted, all of us sat together and chanted Vishnu Sahasranama loudly. It's a treatment, right? Vishnu Sahasranama, chanting Vishnu Sahasranama is a treatment for Grah. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's given both in Charaka and Pampata, and that is, we saw the miracle happen. Our plan was to chant it at least for 3 times, and then the young volunteers sleeping by my side, we were just patting, comforting him, and then continuously chanting, all of us in a group. He also started chanting that very slowly along with us. Chandan we were continuously keeping the wet cloth over that. I think 3 hours, he said, I want to go to Gulu. So he passed Dravamala, and after that he was fine. And the next day morning, he took a session for the public. He was completely active throughout the day also. And that is when we were talking, who said Ayurveda is slow? Ayurveda doctors may be slow, we can't help that, but then Ayurveda is not slow as long as the doctor is able to identify the exact avastha, the stage of it, and then just trust and take a plunge. It's very wonderful to see miracles happen. Not that we don't do mistakes, we do make mistakes. We are humans, but then it's okay. Right? Hello?
Ma'am, can I ask another question?
Yes,
It's
sure.
also a foolishness, don't think. Okay, ma'am. Cucumber juice can we give? Cucumber.
No way. Absolutely no. Tell me why. It's not a phala. I mean to say it's not a ripe fruit. We're using it in an unripe condition, isn't it? So that cannot be taken here. Instead, you can as well ask me, can we give muskmelon? I would say yes. Because that's the same valli phala that also, but then we are using it as a ripe fruit. Kala pakwa. It's bhanu pakwa, kala pakwa. So we need a pakwa material here. Agni is involved. Either Pitta Kapha Jwara or Vata Jwara or Grishma or Varsha, Agni is involved. So we can't have anything that is apakwa to be given here. Peyadi, we have Agni Paka happening. In Tarpanadi Krama, we have Kala Paka happening. All fruits are Kala Pakwa. But we do need a Pakwa ahara. We cannot give an apakwa one.
Can we use raisins? Can we use raisins?
Raisins means what?
Dry grapes?
Yeah, why not? Certainly. Soak them well, squeeze them out, use that water. Certainly, yes.
Can we give raisins boiled water, ma'am?
Well, we can. Boil, cool, then again prepare. Yes, no problem. Depends, but we should know why. Why am I choosing to give boil? Probably if I take kapam, if there is kapam, and then still you want to give, you choose to give tarpanam in the case, then probably you will boil draksha kashay, then cool it and then add laja and then give. Do a mantha and give.
But we cannot add dry ginger also, isn't it, ma'am?
Add what?
Chukku and
Nagara.
draksha. Yeah,
Nagara. Absolutely no. Because see, tarpana only we are giving in those conditions where there is pittanubandhitva or ushnata involved. So,
ma'am, if it is not pitta anubandha, can it give in that form?
why are you giving tarpana then? You can as well go for payadi, right?
Okay.
And in payadi, then you can liberally use that nagara, ethas aushadha siddha bihi. According to the condition, you can choose the aushadha and use it. Of which nagara is a very familiar one.
Okay.
Yeah. There are a few things that each one of us have to observe. Different forms of laja. I have seen laja made of flour, ragi, of course. But have any of you seen laja made of wheat and yava? I would be interested to know that. Because there is a reference, even in Prameha, which speaks about a laja made of yava can be used in conditions. So, we're just curious to know if anybody have come across it.
Ma'am, does laja mean that it is roasted within the husk itself? Is it necessarily
yes,
in the husk?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Because wheat, just as it is, we kind of roast it like we do rice.
That is Brishta Tandula. Brishta Tandula is different. Brishta Tandula is
No, but
different.
not roasted. Yes, roasted, but roasted until it kind of pops, no? Like popcorn, basically. You close you close the lid and then it pops. It's not just roasted. It opens up.
Barley?
Wheat. I don't know about
Wheat,
barley.
yeah.
Wheat we've tried.
So, wheat powder?
Not powder, ma'am. The whole grain.
No. Did it pop up into a laja?
Yes, ma'am. It does. Not
Okay,
uniformly,
that's nice.
not all of it, but it does. It does pop.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. And there was something else I was thinking about. Infants, in Balopritara, treating the mother, especially in Kshiraka children when they are treating. 3 aspects of treating the mother, not giving medicines to the baby, but also ensuring that taking the stanya properly, and through stanya pariksha diagnosing the baby's condition and using a suitable stanalepa to ensure that stanya shuddhi happens and then the baby takes, this whole package is important for proper line of treatment. Not to over-medicate the infant actually, but actually take care of the mother. And, once you start treating the mother, Shuddha Kshira will start appearing after 24 hours. We know that Ahara will turn into Rasa or Stanya later on. So that much period again the Stanya will not be clean, will not be Shuddha. So Stanalepa with the same dravyas and then ensuring that the baby gets that. So this whole thing is something in Jwara that we also need to take care of.
Ma'am, nothing related to Jwara, but since you said Stanya Shuddhi, can you tell us how to use Patha? Because it is Stanya Shodhaka, right?
Patha?
Yes, ma'am.
That's interesting. Patha is a very nice Stanya Shodhaka. Patha depends on the condition. Rub Patha, makeup paste applied to the Stanya, leave it for 45 minutes, Muhurtam. Leave it for 45 minutes and the next when you're giving, the mother is breastfeeding the child, wash it well, breastfeed the child, and once the child breastfeeding is over, then immediately again wash it, apply the lepa, leave it until it's a time for next breastfeed, then again wash it, again do it. So continue it over 24/7, 1 day or 2 days until
The root, right?
medicine. Pardon?
The root, right?
Yeah, the root.
Okay.
Patha Moolam.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. So that is it from my side. Thank you, organizers. Thank you, everyone. It was a nice opportunity for me to go through and Shastra and also remember. I think special thanks to Dr. Kavita. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum.